Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I tell you, many kings and prophets have desired to see what you see, and have not seen it. To hear what you hear, and have not heard it. I thank you, Father, for hiding these things from the learned and the wise, and revealing them to the innocent and the simple.
Check this out. It's a car in Buffalo that's turned into a giant icicle Monday after a weekend storm sent waves from Lake Erie surging right onto the streets. After a slow start, winter has hit upstate New York with a vengeance. You're going to see 3 feet of snow the next few days, but this winter will not compare to last. The city got so much snow last year that a 12-foot pile still hadn't melted by the end of July.
Welcome to January in upstate New York. Heavy lake effect snow and strong howling winds marking a return to winter. That's the sound of thunder snow Tuesday in Buffalo. Cold air moving behind an Alberta Clipper weather system is blowing across the warmer than average Great Lakes, kicking up high winds and snow. Clouds did little to quell the heavy snowfall enveloping roads, and people with shovels and snowblowers seem to be fighting a losing battle too. Blizzard conditions led to a 40-vehicle pileup along Interstate 74 in eastern Indiana. The two-chain reaction crash is leaving cars and debris for a half-mile stretch. No serious injuries were reported. Another pileup on I-70 involved 13 vehicles.
I got hit about 5 different times. I got bumped around pretty good in there.
In Niagara County, New York, drivers had a tough time keeping it between the lines.
Apparently I couldn't see the road and I missed the turn, so down I went.
Now, Buffalo has gotten 2 feet of snow since Tuesday and should get 6 to 9 more inches sometime today, and the snow will keep coming. Forecast to say by the end of Thursday, parts of upstate New York will see 3 feet of snow.
In other news tonight, in Turkey today, a suicide bomber blew himself up in a section of Istanbul that is most often packed with foreign tourists. At least 10 people were killed, 15 wounded. Turkey's government blames ISIS, but not everyone is convinced.
The deadly explosion targeted Istanbul's historic heart, just yards from monuments dating back 2,000 years. At least 8 of those who lost their lives were German tourists. This image captures the moment of the blast. Jostein Nielsen from Norway was hit by shrapnel from the bomb. "We were splattered," said his wife Magna. "Our clothes, my jacket, was spattered with burnt human remains." The Turkish government blamed a Syrian suicide bomber and said he was a member of ISIS. But so far the terrorist group, which normally celebrates its atrocities, has not taken responsibility. This attack comes just 3 months after 2 suicide bombers targeted a peace rally in the Turkish capital, Ankara. More than 100 people were killed in the deadliest terror attack in Turkey's modern history. Turkey's a member of the US-led coalition against ISIS and has tightened its border security to try to stop the flow of militants to Syria. But Turkey's also engaged in a violent conflict with militants from the country's Kurdish minority after a ceasefire collapsed last year.
Some here in Turkey believe this spate of deadly attacks shows that Syria's civil war is spilling across the border. But Scott, others blame the Turkish government because of its ongoing clashes with the country's Kurdish militants.
The South Korean television station KBS is reporting that the United States tested a new type of nuclear bomb for the first time last year and will conduct 4 more rounds of tests in response to the threats from the DPRK.
A new generation of nuclear weapons, the smaller but precision-guided bomb, the B-6112, could blur the lines between nuclear and conventional weapons. In October 2015, the first test bomb was fired from an F-15 fighter jet in the Nevada desert and hit the target. According to U.S. media, the bomb has a pair of steerable fins that make possible a longer flying range, which means a safer distance for the delivery aircraft. An internal guidance system which doesn't use GPS gives it an accuracy of around 30 meters. The bomb can penetrate a building and explode inside. In addition, the B-61-12's explosive yield can be set to match the target in a range from 300 tons to 50 kilotons. The Pentagon says this new type of a weapon can reduce the U.S. nuclear stockpile but keep its deterrence force. It says one use would be at the beginning of the conflict.
The DPRK's news agency KCNA has quoted top leader Kim Jong-un as saying the country will fight back with a nuclear attack if it is threatened by the provocations of any country. Kim also underlined the need to bolster both in quality and quantity for the country's nuclear force. He made the statements during a ceremony on Tuesday to award nuclear scientists, technicians, workers and officials for the hydrogen bomb test, which skeptics have called into question.
Two small Navy boats similar to the ones here were en route from Kuwait to Bahrain when U.S. officials say they suffered a mechanical breakdown. The boats drifted into Iranian waters and 10 U.S. sailors were taken into custody and held overnight at an Iranian base on the island of Farsi. Speaking on state TV, the naval chief for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard said the American vessels were engaged in unprofessional acts before being picked up, and the sailors were taken into custody without much resistance.
Some of the only people in America who were
Any mention of the detainment was left out of President Obama's State of the Union address as U.S. officials worked to confirm the status of the crew. On Tuesday, Secretary of State John Kerry spoke directly with his Iranian counterpart and was personally assured the sailors would be well treated.
We've received assurances from the Iranians, both that our sailors are safe. We've also, most importantly, received assurances that they will be allowed to continue their journey promptly.
The sailors were on board Navy Riverine command boats, which do not normally carry sensitive equipment. The incident comes 2 weeks after Iranian Revolutionary Guard ships fired off rockets within a mile of the American aircraft carrier Harry S. Truman as it entered the Persian Gulf. The rockets were aimed away from the ship, but the incident drew a strong protest from the U.S. The Navy will now conduct an investigation, but the U.S. seems intent on getting this incident behind them as quickly as possible. Defense Secretary Carter released a statement saying, "We appreciate the timely way in which this situation was resolved."
At least 22 people have been wounded in a bomb attack by Kurdish rebels on a police station in Turkey's troubled southeast. A car bomb attack carried out by the Banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, caused heavy damage to outer walls of police station in the town of Sina in Diyarbakir province, and the rebels then followed up the car bomb with rocket attacks and long-range gunfire. Adjacent housing for police officers was also hit, wounding some of the officers' wives and children.
The explosions, this one outside a Starbucks, rocked a busy part of central Jakarta, an area packed with offices, luxury hotels, and not far from Indonesia's presidential palace. The gruesome aftermath was in places too graphic to show. Suddenly, the explosion went off at the police post. This witness said, "I saw people running away and 2 people lying on the ground bleeding." Heavily armed security forces responded and a gun battle broke out, apparently between attackers and police. Indonesian authorities tell us the assailants rode motorbikes and used both grenades and guns. Christian Hubel is an advertising executive living in Jakarta.
It looked pretty serious, so it looked like a terrorist attack or something like that. We saw there were multiple explosions and a lot of people were running away.
Indonesia has the world's largest Muslim population and has battled Islamic extremism. This is the first major attack in Jakarta since 2 hotels were bombed in 2009. In 2002, more than 200 people were killed in a bombing on the Indonesian island of Bali.
Indonesian authorities had recently received warnings of an attack from the Islamic State. When I was in Indonesia earlier this month, I saw stepped-up security at sites popular with tourists.
A convoy of 40 trucks carrying food and other supplies has entered Syria's besieged town of Madaya. The rebel-held town is a former mountain resort near the Lebanese border. It has been under siege for months by forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. More than 24 people have reportedly starved to death there since December, and UN says it's the worst suffering it's witnessed in the country's near 5-year conflict. This is the second delivery to the town this week. The first arrived on Monday.
The Coast Guard says 2 military aircraft have gone down after colliding just north of Hawaii's Oahu Island. There is a search underway for personnel. Let's bring in Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr. Barbara, what do we know?
Good morning, Chris. This information just breaking here at the Pentagon this morning. What we do know is about 4 a.m. Eastern Time, the Coast Guard in Hawaii got a call from the Marine Corps telling them that they believe there had been a mid-air collision of 2 aircraft. The search now underway, as you say, off the north shore of Oahu Island. They are looking, we are told by the Coast Guard, for the possibility of 12 people, each aircraft believed to have had 6 on board. It is believed that they did collide somehow. The information coming in very sketchy, but the Coast Guard spokesman out there tells CNN they have located a debris field. They believe they've seen an empty life raft, the possibility of a fire. So a very difficult situation, still dark, of course, out in Hawaii, but a full search now underway. 2 aircraft colliding, believed to be a total of 12 on board those 2 aircraft.
The Russian government has started preparing for the worst scenario, although no concrete plan has been made. The country's economy has been badly hurt in the past year, as oil prices have been slashed by almost 70% since mid-2014. Russian President Vladimir Putin called for the government to prepare well to deal with the economic trend, but he stressed that this does not mean Russia will change its current economic policies.
What we implement is a balanced fiscal and budgeting policy. We have anticipated economic trends in the past year, and now we will respond to the global economy in 2016 and our domestic economic problems with the same prudence, professionalism and timeliness, especially at the start of the year.
Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev warned on another occasion that the government will need to make more cutbacks to avoid any economic trauma.
On a very busy trading floor here at the New York Stock Exchange, we've just heard the closing bell ring and stocks got crushed today. No doubt fear is ruling Wall Street these days. During today's session, we saw the Dow and the S&P 500 fall below levels that we haven't seen since August. The Dow, you look at the year so far, the Dow has fallen already 8% for the year, and we're only about 2 weeks into 2016. Part of the reason we're seeing this dramatic fall in stocks, oil prices also falling, hitting 12-year lows, falling below $30 a barrel. The particular move in oil today happening because sanctions against Iran are expected to be lifted, and that's expected to unleash more oil into an already oversaturated market where you see an oversupply of oil and less demand. The crash in oil is happening so much and so fast, it's really spooking investors. And the thing is, it's not just oil. China is also spooking investors as well. There are a lot of worries about China's slowing economy and affecting the U.S. The sell-off actually happening today actually started in China, went to Europe, and then here to the U.S. Even today in the U.S., getting some disappointing data on retail sales, certainly not helping the trade. Retail sales fell in the crucial month of December. That's the holiday shopping period where retailers hope to make out a win. That didn't happen. Also, a regional manufacturing index falling to a level that we haven't seen since March 2009. That was during the recession. Today, we also saw investors dumping stocks because it is a weekend, and not just a weekend, but a long weekend. The stock market is closed on Monday, so a lot of times these investors don't want to hold on to stocks, especially when the Chinese markets will be open on Sunday night.